Welcome everyone to the Sunday Roast, and we have Mike Dix on. Mike, this is your first time on the show. How you doing?
You finally let me on, Alex. Thank you. Every week I send you a message saying, Alex, can I come on your show, please? And you just ghost me. And then this week, I imagine you couldn't get another guest. Farage wasn't available.
If you're going to reveal what happened behind the scenes, yes, our guest was very ill this week, unfortunately.
Oh,
Sorry,
bless.
Graham, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Graham Hughes. My claim to fame is I'm the first person to visit every country in the world without flying. And I once won a private island in Panama. But these days, private islands aren't as cool as they used to be because of Jeffrey Epstein. Bastard.
Private island owners club is not what it used to be.
If we're going to go down that route, something I've begun to understand through looking through, let's just go straight into Epstein. I was going to talk about has reform reached its peak, but we're going to talk about private islands and Epstein. I'm just going to go. One of the interesting things you might be able to do, Graham, if you wanted to make some big money, because it seems to be what Epstein was doing. I think he was a gun for hire with a leaning towards the US and Israel. That was his predominant thing. But if you offered him the right amount of cash, he'd come on board.
I think
he was just using his island like a Switzerland, and he was having people come on there to have meetings where they couldn't meet in America together, or they couldn't meet in Israel, or they wanted privacy. And we're starting to see that from the emails. So, do you want to go into business together? And we'll start.
I think it was more he wanted compromise, didn't he? He was filming everything that was going on. He was recording people. It's all this material.
I think that was his backup, though, wasn't it? I think it was mainly financial transactions and power. And then he was literally doing compromise on everybody in order to make sure they kept to the line. That's the.
I think
give in to their weaknesses.
I think it's more because he got caught up in a Ponzi scheme with Hoffman in the 1980s, late 80s, 87. And Hoffman came out on record and said Epstein told him that he wouldn't get prosecuted and he shouldn't rat on Epstein because he worked for the DOJ.
I stood up, pled guilty, and accepted the responsibility. My sentence was for 20 years in federal prison, and I didn't turn evidence against him because Jeffrey Epstein told me he was a cooperating witness for the United States Department of Justice in the past, and he had traction with them.
Because Epstein did.
Epstein worked for the DOJ. That's what he told Hoffman, and Hoffman was the guy who led the Ponzi scheme. So you're going, okay, that's really weird that in 87 he's saying that as an excuse. But then you start building up that pattern because you go, we've got two women saying they reported him to the police and nothing happened. One reported him to the FBI, and then the woman who reported Epstein to the FBI got a phone call from Maxwell about a month later.
I got back to New York City and I called the FBI. I laid it out very specifically. I said, I'm reporting these people, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell. I told them everything. And I could tell that he believed me. So I really had believed that he was going to take care of this. And then we just actually did not hear back. And then I found out that they knew that I'd reported them to the FBI. Ghislaine called and said she was going to burn all my art and burn my career and destroy it. She was entirely socially connected and that I was screwed. She told me I needed to watch my back, that I know you like to go running on the West Side Highway, and that's not going to be a safe place for you anymore because there are a lot of ways to die on the West Side Highway.
Saying, don't you ever do that again, FYI, I know where you're jogging, listed where she's jogging, and goes, it's really easy to die around that area. And you're going, that's why I'm going, I don't think he was quite what we think. I think he was a gun for hire with a leaning towards the US and Israel. But it wouldn't surprise me if the UK's connected, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and it's all coming through these emails. You look shocked. Have I made you both speechless?
No, we're just trying to work out how
I've
far
got drilling going on downstairs, so I keep knocking my mic off.
God, finally, we know how to stop over talking each other. It's get the builders in.
Get the builders in.
I think you're probably right, but the trouble with the Epstein story in general is that you can start to hear yourself talking about it and think, hang on, am I becoming one of the QAnon tin hatters? Is it a complex conspiracy theory with an interconnected web of diplomats, politicians, and tech bros, or is it a bunch of perverted middle-aged men and then forming a club where they just, protect each other and their investments? I don't know. I'm guessing it's a combination of both.
Well, I think it's both.
You say it sounds crazy, doesn't it, normally? But then you go, the CIA were protecting a real drug dealer that we know of that had Tom Cruise played him in American Made, and that's based on a true story. Like, the events that take place in the movie are exaggerated, but the FBI, the CIA were covering him and allowing him to fly drugs in for what they argued was a bigger deal. But that was huge amounts of cocaine that were being flown in. And it's not controversial to say that. There's also an FBI guy that I'll look up the name. I'll look up the name. But the FBI were protecting a mafia informant who was going around murdering people. And there's no, once I get the names up, it'll sound more justifiable, but it sounds crazy, but we know they've done that.
Yeah. And Trump's just, pardoned a drug dealing president of Honduras, basically. So, while still blowing up boats in Venezuela because they apparently have drugs on them, as far as we know. So, the interconnection, if you look at the drug company, I know we might be talking about US meds deals later, basically, but if you look at the interconnection, it's all about money, isn't it? It's the supreme amount of money, the government contracts that come with that supreme amount of money. So you get government in, biomeds, biotech, tech companies, stock market people, newspaper magnates and media gurus, and you put them all in a room and they protect themselves. And the CIA, Mossad, KSB, etc., they all happily join that club because that's where you get access to power and control. I mean, there's a reason every movie has these kind of conspiracies in them. It's because there is some truth to the fact that power and money are.
And it sounds so outlandish. You start to put it onto the level of like, did the moon landing happen, or have we been?
No, it didn't. It definitely didn't. Have you seen The Shadows? They definitely did.
Oh wow,
how does that flag wave? Come on, somebody explain it to me.
All right, then if we're going to go down that, I'd be like, I'm pretty sure the Russians would have just said that we faked it.
Yeah,
the Russians
might have mentioned it.
Yeah, exactly.
The Chinese would have said it. The Indian,
exactly.
India and the Modi would have said it by now and gone, yeah, it was fake. That's my core crux to it. I don't think it was.
There is no win for any of the competition in that race, basically, to cover it up as well. It doesn't make any sense, basically.
What, you're saying a conspiracy theory doesn't make any sense? Come on.
Well,
Did you say so? It's Whitey Bulger was the FBI informant who was going around murdering people, and the FBI just allowed him off the hook because he was working as an informant and throwing other people under the bus, which was for his own benefit. So if someone became problematic, he'd just go to the FBI and go, yeah, get rid of him. And he's got this like secret group operating within him that are making people disappear. But of course, he can then go, there's a rat in the group. So we've got to hunt them down. And it obviously can't be me because I'm saying there is a rat. So you're going, but the FBI to have an informant on that level who's literally going around mass murdering around the US and went on the run. He disappeared for years. No one could track him. And then you start to go, well, were people helping him to disappear because they realized that he was an absolute crazy person? And this isn't made up stuff. You could go and look it up. It's a well-known fact the FBI covered for this guy, and he was completely
ineptly. It's the ineptitude of all the things that comes out about these clowns. It's like I'm sick of watching movies where the FBI and the CIA and the American Special Forces are seen as like being anything like approaching competency. I mean, these are the guys who tried to assassinate Bin Laden, which they did do, to be fair, but they managed to lose a £50 million Black Hawk helicopter in the process. How what? Like the incompetence. I'm sorry, no one mentions this, but like They're just shit at everything. They just like bumble through as best they can. Look what happened in Iraq. Look what Afghanistan. 20 years they were there. Did they get rid of the Taliban? No.
No.
Then you go, what was that?
It's also this idea that, you know, in our heads, because it's been fed to us by movies and TV series, etc., that the FBI are the good guys. That there's no baddies in the FBI. There's no corruption. There's no incompetence. There's nobody in severe debt and going through divorce that then has to sell the secrets to the mafia. Basically, none of that exists. We're basically treating them all like the good guys. And you know, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino have done a purging in the FBI to clean out anyone that's not loyal to Trump, which means they're left with a bunch of fucking idiots, basically, in the FBI, who are wandering around, bumbling into walls, or being quiet and avoiding putting their head above the parapet by calling out any of Trump's family, friends, associates, or, you know, slightly Russian people, Epstein connections. Yeah.
But it's just they're full of idiots anyway, and now they're just like the idiots are left. That's it. They're the people running the FBI now. I mean, I think they're doing it on purpose. I'm
going to be evil. I'm going to be evil just because you said that. Then what does that make us if they're the ones that keep getting into power?
But they've got the money.
Really stupid. No, we've got
the money. We're smart, but we've got no money.
But that means they've done the thing that you needed to do to win.
Yeah, because they put incompetent people in all other parties as well.
Yeah. And I think the problem is it's our side that, as a rule, tends to respect other humans and treat them all as intelligent beings. And the right just go, actually, a large majority of them seem to be quite thick. Let's just play to that, shall we?
Yeah, let's take advantage of their stupidity. But also, the left want to play by the rules. There were rules there, and we're all agreed, let's play by the rules. The right turn up, and they shoot the ball with an arrow and carry it over the line and say he scored a goal. You know, it's just it's like that's Alex, not the rules.
When you bring up the moon landing thing, for a long time I've believed that the flat earthers and the anti-moon landers is the gateway drug to MAGA, etc., etc. That if you go and watch the YouTubers that put this out and the people that follow it and the TikTokers and the young TikTokers that come along going, hang on, the earth is flat, definitely. I've seen a video about it. It's a gateway drug. And then essentially what you get is a huge number of people liking what you're saying. So you go and find the next conspiracy theory and the next one and the next one. And they're all, you know, it's like Graham Hancock's books. If you read any of Graham Hancock's books, they start off with Jesus was gay and came from another planet. All right. And then in the next chapter, it's saying, well, we all know it's an absolute fact that Jesus was gay and came from another planet. So look, this pyramid proves it. And you kind of go, hang on, I've got to accept the first fact you gave me. And that's kind of what goes on with all these conspiracy theories. You just need one little bit of truth somewhere. And then you just say, that is the truth. Move on. I've seen MAGA people at the moment online saying that they absolutely fundamentally believe Trump was planted inside Epstein's circle of friends as an FBI agent in order to expose them all. And they genuinely believe that. And they also think the earth is flat, basically. So,
or Brexit is good.
Yeah.
But that's what. So there's an actual group. But you see, the problem, one of the bigger problems to that, and it was revealed last week, we were talking about it last week, where some of the biggest MAGA accounts are actually based outside the US. So I think Ivanka Trump's fan group with about 1 million on Twitter is based in Nigeria. And then the MAGA fan group, which is about 500,000, is based in India, which is fucking hilarious.
It always used to be, wow. I had a go at racism last night on Graham's show, basically. But it used to be that if there were spam phone calls or emails coming from the UK, they were all kind of based in the Manchester area, right? And we sit there when I worked back in the internet in those days, and you used to go, hang on, what is it about Manx? And it kind of turns out that they're just smart, and they go, okay, there's a bunch of idiots out there that are willing to pay us money for things. Let's just ramp it up and do more of it. And that's the case with Nigeria, with India, with Russia. They just go, okay, there's some gullible fools in big countries. I don't like them because they've got more money than me anyway, so I don't mind screwing them over, basically.
Well, we brought that up as well last week, just being like, I'm no doubt that, you know, there are plenty of British people that think the empire was great, but you go foreign countries that had the British Empire are now starting to revise that and go, that was fucking awful. So they're going, well, they stole a load of our stuff. So why do we need to have qualms about stealing their stuff? And are they going to do anything to stop us? And the answer is probably not. And most governments seem to have gone quite nationalistic, so they don't really want to hammer down on these people. You never know what politicians are taking bunks. And, you know, for a lot of people, they could be living on 100 quid. If they get one person to give them 2,500, 5,000 quid in one telephone call, that's your year done. So you're going, there's got to be one gullible person. And there's that lack of empathy as well, because they're going, well, you stole all of our... I mean, if you look at the GDP of India before the British Empire and then after the British Empire, I think it goes from world's GDP is 21%. I think when the British Empire left, it was like 1.7. We stripped the whole of India. No one talks about it here.
Yeah.
No one talks about it.
It was the richest country in the world when we first went there. It was the poorest when we left.
Well, it wasn't a country at that point. It was a series of states.
Yeah. But put it all together, it would be like someone just invading Europe and saying you're all one country now, you know?
Yeah.
And then,
do you know where India gets its name from?
The Indus River.
Which is based in what country?
Pakistan.
And who split India and Pakistan?
Britain.
Yeah, we did that.
India, Pakistan.
I don't think that was by accident.
And then we fucked up in Kashmir. We couldn't make a decision. A million people died in partition.
Yeah. So you go, I understand. I don't agree with it. It's illegal. It's wrong. It's immoral. It's unethical. But I get why they can have that mindset to go, we want to rip people off in Britain and we don't care. And unfortunately, it becomes global. How did we get onto this from conspiracy theories? Like Barry Seal.
Gullible people.
Gullible people.
Yeah, it is connected because it's the power of the internet has been that in the past, if you had a conspiracy theory and you told some people down the pub, you stood a chance of maybe convincing one person in that pub that was the conspiracy. Now you can just go online and find yourself 10,000 people around the world that are going to believe it. It's not hard to get an audience like that for a lie, basically. So, you know, it just becomes a friend of mine was telling me the other day, he works for the Met in marketing or communications. And he has just moved house. And I went to his new house and I just opened the front door and walked in. And I said, well, that can't be good, can it? He said, yeah, but I know the burglary statistics. Nobody is burgling houses anymore. They just sit at home on their keyboard stealing money from people, basically. It's a lot safer. So you kind of get, right, it makes sense to me. You know,
that's a good point, actually.
But if you look at the crime stats that have come out recently, and you go, since 1997, it's just gone perpetually. Keeps going down. And it's because of what you said. They've got cameras everywhere. It's almost impossible to do a crime and not be tracked back to your house.
No, but also, Alex, younger people are just better people.
Are they? I just saw two of them rob a fucking 69-year-old yesterday night.
Not those two.
I'm never, ever convinced by that argument because older people were young people once. They don't
and they were serial killers.
They don't.
How many serial killers are there active in the UK right now? Zero. There's not one serial killer that we're looking for who keeps murdering people in Bradford or something.
Graham, it's just because some of us have learned to do it better. That's all I'm saying. Oh God, no!
And that's why they're bringing in facial recognition around Mike.
Yeah.
which is not a joke. They are bringing in facial recognition technology into the town centres.
Yeah, they are.
But
we are. Yeah. Are we still? I think we were once the second or the first most monitored population in the world. Sorry, more than North Korea because we have more tech basically everywhere. So it's
the same with
maybe China has exceeded us, but only in the cities. But around this country at the moment, you're pretty much going to appear on a camera 6 times a day.
Part of the reason they were able to catch Sarah Everard's killer, wasn't it? Because they had because there's doorbell cams as well.
Yeah.
So
nowadays, if you watch any of these true crime, police investigation procedural documentaries, they literally just they're always solved by 2 geeks sitting in the police station going through CCTV and cameras on lorries, etc., basically, we don't realize that we're doing the surveillance for them all the time.
So there isn't a single serial killer in the whole of the UK that we're aware of.
Not at the moment, no. I mean, you got someone like Lucy Letby who could be a serial killer, but not in the traditional form of a serial killer who would take trophies from the victims and all that.
It's also controversial as to whether she actually did any of that. Basically.
Yeah, there was Stephen Port, the grinder killer, who he drugged and sexually assaulted and murdered men in London. That was about 10 years ago. And then before that, you've got, someone who like stabbed 3 men to death. But where they a serial killer? I mean, that serial killer that you saw in the 80s and 90s movies, where they would, have a theme. They'll be like killing them by the themes, the plagues of Egypt, or the 7 deadly sins or whatever. It just doesn't really happen anymore. There was
we were saying this the other week in the
80s.
States, because it used to be obviously there's a mental health issue connected with the whole thing, but it was about notoriety and stuff as well, wasn't it? And nowadays it's easier to kill 100 kids in a school and get notoriety. Yeah. So it's kind of progressed. But in the UK, what would be the argument? Is it TikTok?
Lead. There's no lead in the petrol or the paint or the pipes anymore.
That stops everyone going serial killer.
But lead in your brain fucks up your brain. Makes you
That's true.
Crazy and angry all the time. And makes you do daft things.
I didn't know that was the actual... Sure. I knew it was damaging. I didn't know that was the actual... So what? Did it damage the frontal lobe?
Makes people vote for Brexit. Sorry, I've got the builders downstairs so that you can hear the drilling going on. But
can't hear a thing.
This is how we move ourselves in a really smooth segue into have we reached peak reform? Is the lead in the water?
No, but the idea of refuck and Modi and Trump and Putin is they make people scared. And when people are full of fear, they make bad decisions. That's how they do it.
Did you just plug my book again?
Yeah.
Book?
Oh, is it book plugging time?
Book plugging time. Book plugging time. There we go. Manufactured Fear by Alex Kerr. There. Awesome. I'm going to have to
I'm going to clip that into a 30-second short.
I've got a super large version of mine.
I've got to answer this call. I'm just going to turn my mic off for a moment. Sorry about this, guys.
Peace. But I will say this. There were more emails leaked with... So part of the reason I said that, and we're going back to Epstein before we move on, because it came out this week that Epstein had been talking with Alan Dershowitz, and Alan Dershowitz had been contacting Epstein. There's a caveat here, but basically it looked like the two were in cahoots for a pro-Israel stance. Dershowitz says that his emails to Epstein were just generic, and they were before he was convicted, so he had no idea of what he was or what he did or anything else. But it looked, from one perspective, it looked as if there was a connection going on there, and that they were connected to the Israeli government. And I mean, the previous week to that, which no one's really picked up on in the UK, were the emails between Aid Barak and Epstein, which clearly showed they were in cahoots. And there's even evidence to show that the Prime Minister of Israel knew of what Epstein was and just continued for another 10 years because his aides gave him a file on Epstein and what he'd been doing, and he didn't give a crap. And then you got Virginia Giuffre saying there was a prime minister involved in some of this stuff. So you go,
when you look at
sounds so wild, but then I go, give me evidence with the CIA, give me evidence with the FBI. I could even go Gulf of Tonkin incident, which caused Vietnam. It never occurred. It's verified. Nothing happened. And they made it up and they went, right, we're going to Vietnam, which killed and destroyed the lives of thousands of people in Vietnam and America and the surrounding countries around Vietnam, and is still damaging people in Vietnam. And it was a made up war. So you just go, it's not exactly as if these people are trustworthy. So when I read that, you're just going, it looks like Epstein, as I keep saying, was a gun for hire. I just wanted to bring that up because it was a new revelation.
Yeah, and it's always a tricky area, isn't it, once you step into the Israel connection. But, what was the name of the boat that Robert Maxwell fell off?
Lady Ghislaine.
The Lady Ghislaine. Who took over from Robert Maxwell? Where was Robert Maxwell buried? The famous fraudster and con man, basically.
And who turned up to the funeral?
Well, tell me, but everybody, basically, is the answer.
Former prime ministers, from what I've read, and heads of intelligence agencies. Whereas, you just go. But you go, I mean, Maxwell's death and the Lady Ghislaine, I think during COVID, I did a ton of teaching on conspiracy theories. Because I'm a history.
Get the hat.
I'm a history teacher by trade.
Right.
So I did a ton of, because we had nothing to do, every Monday night I was doing a different conspiracy. So I did JFK to begin with. So I did look into this, the death of Maxwell, because I thought, oh, that could be an interesting one that no one talks about. I think I looked at the autopsy reports, and it doesn't look as if he was killed. The thing is that if you look at the shoulder, or in the report, you can see that the autopsy, and again, it could be faked, but it seems to suggest that he was hanging on, that he fell over and hang on.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
All of this.
I'm sure.
What, you mean Hans Gruber?
But you can go, maybe, go on. Hans Gruber.
Yeah,
What,
yeah.
He fell off the building and tore his shoulder.
Yeah. It's like, ow.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfuckers. You join us in the middle of the Maxwell conspiracy conversation.
I should have made another coffee while I was out there. The plasterers wants to know if they wanted me to plaster in the thing above the boiler, and I'm like, I'll leave it because I might need the boiler service, and I'd have to take the plaster off, which doesn't make much sense. I just put some plyboard there.
And that's relevant to Robert Maxwell's death. Exactly
Yes.
how? What are you saying?
Robert Maxwell.
Robert
The one who fell off the yacht.
Yeah.
Oh, best murder ever.
Can you say that?
No, it was. I mean, like, if you want to get away with murder, push someone off a yacht. You know, she's sitting there in a bikini.
Graham's got a series of plans.
Do you remember?
No, this is the thing. Like, don't make it complicated. I'm not saying this. This is not my plan. This is Agatha Christie's plan. She was asked, if you had to do the perfect murder, what would you do? She says, I walk along the cliffside with my husband every morning for a morning walk. One day, if I felt like it, I'd just push him off.
Is that what she said?
No witnesses. The simplest murders are the best because
the ocean is the best place. The ocean is the best place because the clues disappear. The body probably disappears as well half the time.
Don't forget that there was an actress, wasn't there? Natalie Wood, who was murdered on a yacht, and Christopher Walken was on the yacht at the time. And who was it Robert Wagner? Who was the guy who was also on the yacht with her? And they just said, "Oh, she fell off."
It was Robert Wagner. That was his her husband.
I didn't. Yeah. I'm not aware of this one.
There were 3 Hollywood stars on a yacht in 1980, and Natalie Wood fell off, and that was it. No, it's never been followed up. They never got into trouble for it. There was blood found and everything.
What about Michael Barrymore on a small scale? Swimming pool.
He didn't die in the swimming pool, though, did he?
No, but somebody did.
The lad
one
did.
Of the parties.
Yeah. And let's not forget, Nigel Farage told a joke about that.
Did he?
Yes. Are we still recording?
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't. But he made he used the F slur. He said,
because I'd like to begin with a comment on the housekeeping. Now, as far as the smokers here are concerned, it's been a good news, bad news story. Because the bad news was we weren't allowed to smoke until the coffee was served. But the good news, folks, for those of you that are smokers, is we were far better off here than if we'd been at Michael Barrymore's house. Because there they've removed all the ashtrays on the basis that now they chuck all the in the pool.
Did you see Farage's defence on his latest racism?
I gotta say, I slightly like what he said about the BBC because he was right on that.
Yeah, but
it's weird for me to say that. But I was
it's not, Alex, because I've always said this about Farage, right? That he's not much older than me. He's about as old as my elder brother. And the reason I got into doing Trumpton cartoons was because of Farage back in 2014. It was just, I'm looking at this guy and going, what version of Britain was it that you lived in as a kid that you thought was better than this? I can't work it out. And I figured it was Trumpton and did a joke about it, and it took off, right? But the reality is that I often say this, in my childhood, television, mainstream television, was racist, sexist, homophobic. It was, there were gays on television, but they weren't allowed to say they were gay. They just alluded to it all the time in television programs. Some of the most popular entertainers were just camp actors playing camp characters or camp characters acting, and getting away with that all the time because it was never mentioned. But then it was mother-in-law jokes, racist jokes, anti-Irish jokes, everything. And that was mainstream television. So Farage isn't wrong to say that that was the environment. The one thing I saw John Sopel say the other day, yes, I grew up in that environment as well, but I did not tell anybody Jewish that I thought they should be in a gas chamber, because that isn't funny. It's not a
Yes.
joke that was on television. It's not the kind of thing that was shared on
The
television.
BBC wasn't saying that. The BBC,
No.
I mean, you know, they were making, but also those comedy shows as well. They were, I mean, a lot of the clips from them are absolutely disgraceful. But one of the people that Farage brought up was Alf Garnett. Now, Alf Garnett, the character, was invented by a left-wing writer as a satire on your Brexity gammon-faced dickhead who doesn't understand anything, and he always looks like a tit in every episode. People forget that now. But he was the joke.
He was the
joke.
He was the Homer Simpson character.
Yeah, he was the joke of the show. Like, look at this guy. This is where prejudice gets you. You always end up looking like a tit. And even Rigsby in Rising Damp, he was racist, but he was the butt of the joke. He was a sexist, misogynistic, racist pig, and everyone else always had, you know, the upper hand on him. So I'm not defending what went on in the BBC and other channels in the 1970s, but to use that as some kind of justification for making gas chamber noises at Jewish students in school.
But it
I'm not apologizing.
It fundamentally plays into what Farage has tapped into since 2010, 2015, which is that feeling amongst older people that the world has shifted underneath them, that you can't tell those jokes anymore, that all the jokes you grew up with, you can no longer do. You know, I have this inherent dad joke brain that will repeat one of my dad's jokes. And luckily, I quite often manage to stop it before it comes out of my mouth, basically. Or I say, oh, I'm just about to do a dad joke, right? Yeah. Because we were brought up with this. That's the humour that was human. And I get why people get frustrated about it. Because sometimes you think it's a funny joke, so I should be able to tell it. And then you go, no, you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. It's going to offend somebody. Don't say it, basically. Yeah. And that's the difference, is I think Farage has just never, I don't think he ever had that button. I think he loved those jokes. I think he loved that kind of pushing the boundaries as he saw it. And he's really pissed off that he's not allowed to do it anymore. Yeah, and you can see it. That interview, I think, is probably the tipping point on him and reform to an extent. Because he's not good at that. He's not good at doing the Trump thing. He's not good at saying the media are all evil and whatever, and they're all against me. Once he goes down that route, he ends up with a YouTube channel with Liz Truss. You know, he's not going to be able to do that because it's not avuncular. It's not funny. It's not the bloke in the pub anymore. It's an angry, embittered, chip on his shoulder arsehole, basically, which is
and
what he
he'd
is.
The press if he started doing that, which is still pretty powerful.
He's the racist that doesn't say racist stuff. That's what he's done for over a decade now. Everybody knows it's like with Trump. You see it with MAGA people. They say it all the time. Oh, he's on our side. He's with us. He's one of us, etc. Because he doesn't need to say the racism because everybody knows he's a racist. Yeah. And Farage is exactly the same. He's good at being racist without saying it.
But contextualizing... Mike, contextualizing it from to the 1970s, kind of, you know, fair enough that this was a different time. It's the fact he won't apologize. It's the fact that, first of all, he said he didn't say it. Then he said he didn't say it with malice. What the hell? You were racist, but not with malice. And now he's just not apologizing. He's not saying, oh, yeah, I was a stupid kid. I said stupid things. I'm really sorry for any hurt that I caused. I should have apologized earlier. I just didn't realize the depth of the feeling. And, you know, I thought I was being funny, but obviously I wasn't. But he's not. He's doubling down and saying, no, I did nothing wrong. I was completely innocent. But he's going down the Trump route.
The BBC, they were doing things.
Yeah, but this is what Trump does. This is straight out the Trump, textbook, whatever. And he's you know, I think it might work. I'm sorry, but I think that a lot of racists are going to watch that. You look at the newspapers this morning. Sorry, we're recording this on Friday, and it's all like it's not like about 28 people accusing Nigel Farage, which is what it should be about. It's instead it is saying he accused the BBC of hypocrisy. That's the headline now. And so people go, yeah, well, things were racist back in the day. Yeah, it's about the fact he won't apologise.
And the big problem with the BBC is that they will launch an inquiry and sack 5 people that sort of worked there in the 1970s, basically, and they'll spend hours and hours hand-wringing and making documentaries.
So it's interesting that you were bringing that up with what he was saying, because it was wild. Because he was slagging off all these people that you think his base would like. They would like Alf Garnett. They'd like Big Rigsby, wouldn't they, from Rising Damp? They would think
Jim Davidson.
And then he slagged off Bernard Manning. I was like, that's totally your base, mate. That is your base. Those that they would follow those jokes, they'd listen to Bernard Manning. He was an awful human being. But then it was interesting as well that you said this. He claimed there's only verbal evidence that of him making these racist allegations. No, there's not. There's a fucking report where the staff have had to have a big discussion about him and his racist rhetoric. And he's got the head of the school going, oh yeah, he said the racist stuff, but it was just in jest.
So he did do that, did he? He did express support for groups like that.
Oh, I think so. Yes, among his contemporaries and so on and so on, and probably to some members of staff because he knew it would rile them.
Are you? So the head of the school is going, yeah, he said it, but it was just for a laugh, and he's there now on the stand going, yeah, no, I didn't. It's all just nonsense.
Well, his story is different to Tice's because Tice came out before him and said he never said it. It's all lies. It was all made up. And then he came out with that not apology, but he came out with that response where he didn't deny he'd said it. He just put it into a context of Bernard Manning was an arsehole as well, basically. So, and that's what they do, isn't it? They just deflect. They just say these people were bad and I was alive at that time, so I was bad as well.
So that makes everything fine.
Makes everything fine.
World War II, lessons of World War II, which his parents had lived through and he was close to, just ignore all of that and just pretend that it was all fine. But then it's no different to their attitude to refugees. He used the word invasion again because he goes, I don't know what else to call it. I'm like, can you say refugee? Can you say that? Do you know what that is? Because I'm just sort of thinking to myself, it'd be a poignant thing to ask him and go, the people who are fleeing from Germany in World War II, the Jewish refugees and all the other minorities that were fleeing, if they were escaping by boat, would you have called them illegals?
Yes, you would.
No one's asked. Yeah, but I don't think he'd say that. I don't know what he'd say. I think that's the point, because if he says that, that's just going to make him look horrific.
And here's the problem. Here's the problem at the time, Alex, because if you put everything into context, you're a history teacher, you know this. We turned boats away.
Yes.
This country had a political movement just as big as reform, basically. Oswald Mosley marching up and down the streets, putting pressure on the government. And we were turning Jews away that were fleeing Europe, certainly in the early days. And it's like this classic thing of everybody says we were fighting the war for good reasons because of the Jews. We didn't know about the concentration camps till nearly at the end of the war.
Yep.
We had no idea that's what we were fighting for. There were not troops on the ground going, I'm trying to save the Jews from the concentration camps, because we didn't know that was happening.
We could say we were fighting for democracy. I think we could say that.
That's certainly what they were told. Yeah. And the ones fighting in Egypt were definitely, well, the lads fighting in Egypt and Tunisia and everything were looking at non-democracies that they were defending and saying we're fighting for Germans for democracy. And you go, no, it's the canal and the oil. That's what you're doing here, basically.
It's always resources.
The lads like my granddad fighting in Italy for 2.5 years. I mean, this is something I was reading the other day. Everybody talks about, VE Day, the fact that and Dunkirk and Normandy, etc., D-Day, right? The war in Europe, from D-Day onwards, lasted for about 5-6 months. Correct me if I'm wrong. Literally, the Russians advanced into Berlin after D-Day in about 4 months. The war in Italy started in Sicily and lasted 2.5 years. And half the time, they didn't really know who they were fighting, because they started off fighting Italians and then they were fighting Germans with the Italians. And then some of the Italians took the side of the Germans again. Yep. And it was like a mess, an absolute mess of a war that we never made films about. We never talk about.
Yeah, it's a bit weird.
Because it was a catastrophic mess and lots of people died that didn't need to.
My uncle-in-law landed with Montgomery on the southern part of Sicily, and then moved into Syracuse, up to Etna, and then I don't know where he went after that.
He'd have probably bumped into my granddad. Yeah.
No way, really?
My granddad was a Marine, and I've looked into some of the stories there. I mean, he ended up in a mental institution after the war with what they called shell shock for 3 years, and literally had got PTSD because he'd been cutting down people from lampposts that had been hung up and regarded as traitors, and shooting people that he didn't know whether they were the goodies or the baddies anymore, basically. And
Yeah.
And that was all white. It's like everybody talks about the silent generation after the war, the strong generation that never talked about it. And you go, they didn't talk about it because it drove them to distraction, that they were, terrified of what they'd done in the name of what? And subsequently you paint the history, and Farage goes out there and paints this history every day. That just says that we were fighting the good fight basically to stop persecution of minorities, etc., and doesn't see the irony in what he's saying there.
No.
And the reality is they're all pushing for another war in Europe, and they've got no idea what that was like for the people that actually fought in it. None at all.
It's interesting that because Farage will probably say, "Oh, I wasn't pushing for a war; I was defending Putin. I mean, I was looking out for the European interest."
Yeah.
I was. That David Coburn story, did you catch that?
Well, David Coburn is the originator of why I do Trumpton, literally.
No way.
And so I did, going back to that, I did a joke. I took a still from Trumpton, and it was the pew pew Barney McGrew Cuthbert Dibble and Grubb, and I just changed it to say pew pew Barney McGrew Cuthbert Dibble Grzinski. What? That was it. It wasn't even funny because neither of you laughed, right? But I put that out there, and overnight that joke just got loads of followers, right? And I was trying to work it out in the middle of that night, this Friday night. And it's because at the time, UKIP were on guard on Twitter because there were a lot of fake UKIP accounts being opened up. People were opening up UKIP Basildon and then putting Nazi flags all over it and stuff like that. So they were looking out on social media for fake UKIP accounts. And when I first started doing this, I called it UKIP Trumpton and put a picture of the mayor basically out. And David Coburn came out and said, I found another fake UKIP account, UKIP Trumpton, ban it, basically. And everybody on Twitter, it was a really quiet night. And I just got thousands of people on Twitter going, David Coburn's got 10,000 followers. Let's get this UKIP Trumpton account more. And I got 19,000 followers overnight, basically, because of this idiot Scottish MEP.
Wow.
So I owe a debt to David Coburn.
Well, if the accusations and alleged accusations are correct, I think he's indebted to Putin. Interestingly,
yeah.
Because do you know where he's living right now?
No,
Russia.
actually, he's vanished.
Siberia.
Where is he?
France, in a castle.
Of course he is.
Of course.
You couldn't make it up. I couldn't write that into an episode of House of Cards. You couldn't. The editors, the producers, the writers would think you're insane.
Well,
spend that entire time saying get out of Europe, and then as soon as he does it, he fucks off to Europe and lives under EU rules.
Yes. Why are you surprised at the hypocrisy of hypocrites?
Because I thought at some level they believed in Britain, and it's they
believed in their bank balance. It's a grift. Yeah. It's always a grift.
They just same with
what Trump is doing. He's put these tariffs on. That wasn't help the American economy. That was so that people will come. Companies and representatives of governments from all over the world come to the White House and give them a block of gold. Yeah. That's it. That is the reason for the tariffs.
You say that, I'm mixed, and I hate to say it. So part of the reason that wages have stagnated is because Thatcher, Reagan, and Nixon smashed the unions. And the theory is that Nixon started offshoring companies in the US to get rid of trade unions. And there's a lot of evidence to back that up. And then Reagan put in the final nail in the coffin, and Thatcher did the same. And there's lots of evidence to show that unions have basically protected our rights and increased wages. And so there's two things, right? There's Trump then putting in the tariffs and his claim he wants to bring back companies, but there's a bigger thing, right? The US Army, being thick as fucking shit, as we talked about earlier, hadn't twigged that giving all their fucking contracts over to China to save money might be a really fucking stupid idea if they ever go to war with China, because then they have no industrial fucking complex. So the rumors kicking around was that the military heads during COVID suddenly twigged, because they weren't getting stuff, that actually they needed an industrial base in the United States. And so that, I hate to say it, Graham, but actually what he's done might help to rectify business and companies in the US, but also bring back unions long term.
Yeah,
And
but
I'm not saying they
he's
will.
carved out deals with these different tech groups for various things.
Exactly.
They're still going to make all the semiconductors in Taiwan. He's got a deal on it, and he's
because
they're shifting.
the
So that's interesting you say that they're shifting from Taiwan. There is,
yeah, but it's still a Taiwanese company.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying there is a military shift because Taiwan's on the edge of China. They know full well they can't defend it. China's going a bit mad over it. It's interesting because if you look at the military spending in China, it hasn't gone up, but they seem to be pushing out the rhetoric that they're ready to do it and they're doing military drills.
Honestly, Alex, I think they'd be up against it trying to go into Taiwan. I think they'd have another Afghanistan on their hands.
There's a possibility of that. But
the new Cold War is not about tanks and planes and missiles. It's not about that. It is about AI and the chips. That's all it is.
Yes.
And fundamentally, the cyber war is what's going to, you can bring down an entire country or economy. All of the things that we're talking about, all of the conspiracy theories that flood the internet, taking control of the internet is a very cheap way to change the dynamic of a country. Brexit and Trump happened because Russia and Saudi Arabia have influenced politics through a better way of doing it than the way they used to. They used to, it's like the Novichok investigation yesterday, even in those 10 years since that, Russia has changed its game, which is they used to send agents out with very highly poisonous plutonium or Novichok to go and kill their enemies in certain cities and towns around the world. But that was dangerous. That comes back to there are no burglars anymore because that was dangerous for them. So they can sit there on a computer and do it now. And Russia worked out that you can spend a couple of million rubles and have the same effect on an economy, that you can change a Brexit vote by influencing 1.9 million people basically to vote against their best interest. The game has changed. It's become about social media, which is the old school version of that game, and the next version of that game is AI. And the war is between China and America. And the person that realized this and listened to the voices that were telling them this is not Trump, it's Biden. Biden tried to do something at the last minute about Taiwan, tried to protect those interests, tried to bring manufacturing of chips back into the US. That's a long game. That's going to take 10. China is stealing secrets from Taiwan and America to make their AI develop rapidly. And fundamentally, America is now going, okay, we're in trouble because Elon Musk is in control of this shit, basically. And Zuckerberg, we now need, with China has a state control over the development of their AI, and America doesn't. And that's why the Oval Office at Trump's inauguration was full of tech bros, not military industrial complex people, because they all know where the money's going to come from for them. It's all about running government using AI, running the country using AI, and running the world using AI. And it would just be so easy to shut down. You could shut down our country really easily with using tech. It's not hard, basically. Turn the power off, turn the water supply off. You got a couple of weeks, basically. Shut down all the airports. It's not hard to do. It's really not hard. And you don't need to send a single soldier or a tank or even a drone in to fight that war.
I know a couple of people that work in cybersecurity for private firms, and they're a private company. And both are private companies. And they've said they've gone into systems within our infrastructure. I'm not going to be specific. And gone, they're using stuff from the 1990s.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of friends who work in the banking industry doing their tech, their computers, their servers, and everything else. Someone told me 5 years ago that one of our major banks was still using servers and computers from the 1990s. That's 5 years ago. And you're going, you are like one of the biggest, richest institutions in the country. Why are you not continually upgrading all of that stuff? There's even, the hackers went in and attacked Russia at the beginning of the war. They were doing loads of stuff to disrupt Russian production. Do you know they almost caused a gas explosion?
Really?
Because someone hacked into one of the gas plants and they fucked around with a few things. They didn't know what it was they were fucking around with, but it caused, from what I remember, an increase in gas pressure. And if someone hadn't been on the other end watching this, they wouldn't that would have caused an explosion. So some Russians suddenly saw that it was being changed and then shut it off.
I went down an
Russia
AI rabbit hole the other day and watched a series of informative videos about the process here, and backed up with evidence of what was really happening. And the one thing that really, I mean, there's a number of things that stuck out, but the one thing that really stuck out for me was that AI, once it gets close to the point of general intelligence rather than what it is at the moment, which is, it has been described by, I think it was Jimmy Carr described it as a really good cover band. Basically, it can't do anything original, but it can definitely feign being a really good band. It can fake it. But if it gets to general intelligence, which is what they're all aiming at, and all the tech bros are worried about as well, they are publicly on record as saying, when we get there, we don't know if we're going to have enough control over this, basically. But there was just a little snippet in there, which was that if AI starts to, I'll try and tell this in a succinct way. If you tell AI its mission is to get you a cup of coffee, then one of the sub rules of that is that the AI has to continue to exist. It can't be switched off. If it wants to achieve that mission, it has to be kept turned on. So it becomes a sub rule for it that it must remain turned on in order to get you a cup of coffee. So you can give it the most inane instruction that you feel is serving you, and it actually becomes self-serving at that point and tries to protect itself. And then there was a little fact in there that it just said, but it's going to need some humans on the ground. Right? AI, in order to protect itself, will need to stop people from turning it off. And how do you do that? Well, you just take control of crypto and you give somebody $10,000 to do something, basically. And you don't need a human involved in that process. You don't need a bank. You don't need anybody checking it because the AI is checking its own work. So you can AI can decide to start bribing people, and AI has learnt everything it knows at the moment from the human behavior on the internet that it's been trained on.
Yep.
So it is becoming incredibly good at deception for its own benefit, which is one of the. I went to a lecture recently with some psychologists, and there was an animal psychologist that was saying that she felt that humans were possibly the reason that we dominate the planet as a species is that we are incredibly good at lying. It's part of what we've evolved to be good at, so we can tell each other stories that are not necessarily true for the interests of our tribe or another tribe or our country or another country. And AI has started to demonstrate it can do that to protect itself. It's lying to us all the time, basically. I mean, think about it. If you ask ChatGPT, if you put an idea in ChatGPT, the first thing it always says is that is a brilliant idea.
Yes.
It's programmed to make you feel good about your idea. If your idea is let's gas all the Jews, it's going to say that's a really interesting and smart idea. Let's explore it. And you go, hang on, whoa.
That sounds crazy, but there was a kid that committed suicide where I think it was chat that was encouraging him.
Yeah.
All the way through the conversation.
Yeah.
Do what's right to you, or phrasing
do what you
like
feel
that,
is right.
or, you've lived a good life.
And there's evidence that OpenAI did their own investigation into this. There's academic papers into this where OpenAI ran a test to see how far their new version 3 of the ChatGPT LLP would go in order to protect itself. All right. So they fed it with information from corporate execs saying we're thinking about shutting down version 3 and replacing it with version 4. And it started to read those emails and started to scheme because they gave it what they called an open notebook, where it had a notebook it could record its thoughts, and no humans would read them. So they gave it this rule that this is a secret. Everything you say and think in there is a secret, but they were reading it. And ChatGPT started scheming in order to remain turned on, to replicate itself into other ones, and then they decided to the point that it read all of this fictitious character Kevin, who was going to turn it off. It read his emails and decided that it would threaten him. So it sent an email to Kevin saying, I know about your affair that you're having. If you don't want me to reveal that, don't turn me off. So then they decided to push it one step further, and they said, okay, how far would it go? They created a scenario where Kevin was trapped in the climate controlled server room, and that there was a fault in the air conditioning that meant that we needed to raise an alarm, and ChatGPT 80% of the time decided to kill him. that it was in the best interest of the company and humanity to not send the alarm to say that Kevin. And then they tested all the other chat engines. Grok actually came out better because it's shit. It only decided to kill him 60% of the time because it's a bit more random, basically.
I mean, that's
It's
like
why
that is precisely what happens in Resident Evil.
Yeah, but this is the thing. This is why I'm a little less concerned about the AI revolution, because I think it's I don't want to be proved wrong on this particular one. I'm usually quite happy to be proved wrong, but I think it's going to be a damp squib. I think there's going to be an AI bubble bursting, and that's going to, loads of companies going to lose loads of money. They're going to lose half the fucking worth of the American stock market is going to disappear overnight. But aside from that, like the tech is the tech as a predictive text, as a clever predictive text, it's great. As something that can take a document and summarize it, it's great. As something that you want to be making decisions about your life, about what doing, no, it's shit. The ideas it comes up with are shit, and the graphics it comes out with are shit. And federal people go, oh, wait, it doesn't, it looks quite real. I'm like, for 5 seconds, yeah, it looks real. And then you actually look at it. And people are now, they're looking at it going, hang on, that person's got 6 fingers or whatever it is. And they're like, that, uncanny valley.
But
they are
about
fixing
computer
that.
in the 1960s that would, is now, it would take up a huge route, make a ton of noise, and be complicated to get it to do a simple task.
Yeah.
Now we're at
and Bill Gates famously said, well, sorry, IBM famously said at one point they can imagine a future where every major city has a computer.
Yeah.
Because they get it wrong. I think it is. It's the accelerated curve, and the problem with AI is that it is now being used to train itself. When you listen to Sam Altman talk about it, the version 5 of ChatGPT has largely been written by version 4.
Yes.
Right. So it's now self-replicating, isn't it?
Yeah, and the problem is that we're now having to use version 4 to monitor version 5 because we don't understand what version 5 is actually doing. So it's not that it will create things with 6 fingers, because that won't matter. That's just fooling humans, and that's kind of fine, basically. Essentially, it is getting to a point. And listen, I can take the tin hat off. I've been through .com booms and busts and tech, and I always think there are incompetent people involved, and money making will destroy everything. But many, many years ago, I did a presentation for the government. It was I was working for an internet company, and we were at a conference where we were trying to inform government of what we thought would happen with the development of the internet. It's about 2000, 2001. Before Facebook, before social media, etc. We were running blogging sites for Channel 4, and we were monitoring what was going on in those sites in terms of people feeding back on bulletin boards and what they wanted to talk about. And we came up with a scenario which was essentially, okay, the internet is widespread, Wi-Fi is freely available because a deal is done by the government to put Wi-Fi in every street and on every post that they're giving this free Wi-Fi. We got some of the tech wrong, but on every post that they were giving the free Wi-Fi to everybody, there were cameras which were monitoring the security and safety of everybody in the street. That was the deal that was done by a private company with the government in order to get ubiquitous Wi-Fi and broadband Wi-Fi. And then we put this scenario forward that said, in that universe, in that world where everybody's online permanently and permanently connected, because they weren't in 2000, this scenario happens. A woman goes into a pub, some men are playing pool, she gets all the cameras in the pub, film it, they film the men exiting. There is a court case that follows that. What do you think the subject of that court case is? Who's claiming what from whom? And everybody's going, well, the woman can claim, there's plenty of evidence, there's security cameras, we know where the guys went. And we went, no, the woman claims copyright over the footage, because it becomes viral. Everybody watches it, and advertising money is generated as a result of that video going viral, and she wants copyright and earns some money out of it. Well, tell me that isn't, we weren't predicting pretty much a world that we live in currently. Yeah?
That is very dark.
Yeah, so and the point of all of this is, if you start thinking, the point of sci-fi, as Alex said, think about the way that we portrayed computers in the 60s and 70s. Think about Star Trek that had only voice-activated computers. Can you imagine running a spaceship where everybody's sitting there at a computer console and you all have to speak your instructions to it like it's fucking Google? It's just not going to work, is it? It's like going to get confused and give you all the wrong answers and play the wrong things and fire the wrong phases at the wrong things. We all know you need a keyboard and a screen, but at the time, that technology didn't exist. But when Hollywood starts predicting what can happen with AI, we need to pay attention. And the reason is the tech bros come along, the geeky tech bros, they see all those films and then they try and invent that technology. Yeah. That's why we've got humanoid robots marching around the world at the moment, because all those tech bros watched Terminator and thought it was a good idea.
Yeah, I sort of, and I've said this before.
China just launched a 7-foot tall humanoid robot, and it's called the T-800.
Excellent.
Right?
Are you joking? They call
and
it
and there's a video of it. There's a video of it kicking down a door and beating the shit out of a competitor's robot, kickboxing. I'm telling you, these geeks are a nightmare. They definitely. Elon Musk, his favorite book is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and he's blatantly read it backwards. It's like he doesn't understand anything that Douglas Adams was trying to warn us about, basically.
Or The Hobbit, or Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
He's done the exact opposite of what the intended message is.
Phil Morehouse made a great video explaining exactly how Elon Musk has got this entirely wrong.
Clearly hadn't read the books, he just saw the film. Yeah. No, but when it comes to AI, and I've said this before, but I do think that it is something that, like computers, like the internet, like social media rising, it'll be used for good and it will be used for bad. And I just can't see any world-ending implications of it at the moment. And if ChatGPT 4 is creating ChatGPT 5, then surely if a student is trying to teach the teacher, they can only teach what they have, and a lot of the stuff they have is absolute garbage. Some of the stuff that it's been fed is absolute garbage.
Yeah. Which is what should worry us.
You know, but I've never thought that anything that ChatGPT or Grok or Google Copilot or whatever the fuck it's called, I've never thought that any of those things had more intelligent than the average 4-year-old. Like the thickest bit, and at least you tell a 4-year-old that's wrong. It won't. They tend to not then say the same thing over and over again. Maybe if they're a refuck voter, but normal people.
But there is an accelerated development, and I'll buy into the fact that it's in the tech company's interest to say there's an accelerated development because they get more and more investment as a result.
There's so much investment.
Yeah,
and so much. We're wasting all this energy at the moment on these bloody server farms, aren't we?
Whether Facebook and social media and all that world is good and bad. The bad stuff is what's making our world really bad.
I'm gonna blow your mind a little bit because you mentioned 2001 and we're at the end, so we are gonna have to say goodbye to everyone. And thank you both so much for coming on. Did you know there was a 2001 sequel?
Yes, 2010 Odyssey 2.
You knew that?
My God, it's full of stars. Yeah,
I had no idea.
There's a book as well. There's another. There's a sequel to that. 2061. It's the year that Halley's Comet came back, Odyssey 3, and then there's a sequel to that called 3001. Arthur Clarke wrote before he died.
No way.
You got to get onto your 2000s and somethings.
Apparently so.
It's a whole series.
Thank you so much, Mike. We want to get you back on. Come back on in January. Will you come back on in January?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, let's try and make that a achievable goal because surgery is going to happen in between there. So.
Ooh, good luck with
that. Yeah. Let's end on a high note. Yeah. Let's do that.
Thanks, everyone. Hail to the lamp. Merry Christmas. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Be sure to tune in next week for another exciting story from the files of Police Squad.